in terms of Michigan, um, like the talent is there for Michigan. I actually disagree with Mark. I think the longer the game goes on, I think it benefits Michigan more because I think when Michigan tends to break you, it's not in explosive plays, but it's in wearing you down, grinding you down like a pencil, right? Because they don't take a lot of shots down the field. They just wear you down, your defense down with their rushing attack, right? Pound for pound, pound for pound, pound for pound, until eventually they break one. And then once they break one, they get back on defense. And if you haven't been able to expose them down the field, most likely they're creating havoc in your backfield. They're sacking your quarterback, they're creating pressures, forcing turnovers. So I actually think it benefits Michigan more as the game goes on, because that would tell me, if it's closer down the stretch, that MSU is having a problem capitalizing on their biggest strength, which is explosive plays. They're not the type of offense that does a good job with long sustained drives, right? One of those 11, 12 play drives that last, I don't know, 4 to 5 minutes. They're more of, 5 to 6 for 80 yards, and it's more chunk plays, right? But if Michigan is able to limit that, that puts MSU in an uncomfortable situation in which they haven't had to win that way. So I think it benefits Michigan more. Now, for my sanity and composure, I'd much rather blow MSU off the field and not have to deal with, heart palpitations in the fourth quarter. But, we'll find out. I
Oh,
don't
that's
want to deal
funny.
with that. But I probably will have to. Well, I can't have nice things.
So we have a question. It says, Mark, do you think it comes down to a weakness versus weakness game? Bad passing, Cade, versus bad secondary for MSU. That's an interesting question. I mean, I'll kick it off. I actually think it'll be more so strength versus strength, because I just don't think that Michigan is going to lean on Cade to throw the ball. I think it's going to be they're still going to do what they do. Like, I don't think they'll get to a point where they're, beating their head against the wall, but I think they're still going to run the football. I think they're going to still be run heavy. I think it'll be passing in there. Like, Cade will have his pass attempts, but I just don't think that it's going to be Michigan trying to air it out against MSU. I think they're going to me, if there was a game where Jim Harbaugh would be safe, it's going to be in a top 10 matchup on the road, because his history says that he has not had that type of success at Michigan on the road against top 10 teams. So with that being said, I think he's going to lean more on what they do well and try to win the game that way. So that's my thought on it. Mark, do you want to give it a stab?
Yeah, my stab on that would be, I've seen Michigan State play against Miami pretty much the entire game, saw pretty much the entire game against Northwestern, saw them play Rutgers, and that's pretty much been the extent of my Michigan State football viewing. I know they played that game that we're all talking about against Indiana. I don't remember seeing more than a couple plays of that game. And I'm trying to process where their pass defense is that bad. So I know statistically, if we're just going yards per game, I don't know what the numbers are, but I know I've heard this a couple times this week that their pass defense based on yards given up, passing per game, is whatever it is. I don't think it's like the worst in the country, but it's not as strong as other areas statistically, offense and defense. But I think we need to be careful with total yards given up. I just think Michigan State's been playing in front of everybody all year, meaning everybody's passed against them. I am guessing that the QBR against them, the efficiency against them, passing the ball is not that great. I can't think of any of those teams passing that effectively against Michigan State. So, I don't necessarily think Cade McNamara is the guy to do it. I think the Michigan wide receivers are formidable. I think they have the potential to explode. I haven't seen it from Cade McNamara. And to Des's point, I don't know that really Michigan is going to adjust their game plan to what they perceive to be the strengths or weaknesses of the opponent. I think they do what they do.
No. And I will give them credit for this. The Harbaugh and Gaddis credit for this. Going to the Wisconsin game, we all said that, look, against that Wisconsin defense, you're not going to be able to just shred them, gash them with our rushing attack. In fairness, in comparison to previous opponents, we didn't. Now, I think we still got to 150 rushing yards that day, but we definitely didn't have 300 like we were having the previous weeks. Mm-hmm. But what you saw in that Wisconsin game is that you saw the flea flicker, but you also saw a little bit more. We talked about it post game after Wisconsin, that there was a few drives in which Michigan threw the ball like 4 or 5 times straight 4 or 5 times. And that, to me, that spoke, and Harbaugh was going forward on 4th down, I think on the first couple of drives or something like that. It spoke to the sense of urgency that they felt going into that game. So I definitely seeing that playing out on Saturday, that, they're pulling another unexpected move and, maybe passing the ball a couple times, maybe taking a shot or two down the field, the first couple drives, right? In those 10 to 15 scripted plays. The issue is that concerns me, and we've seen this, is that sometimes they'll try to take a couple shots down the field, or they may try to pass the ball more, and it's not particularly crisp. And it's not that K would turn the ball over, but it would be, let's say they'll pass them on 1st and 10, right? It'd be an incomplete pass. Now we're in 2nd and 10, and I can tell that Gaddis and Harbaugh are not comfortable with K being that type of scenario. So then they'll start to run the ball a bit more. Like, okay, this works. I think they get very, very hesitant when they see K is not sharp off the rip. Right.
Yeah.
So that concerns me, because I think there becomes a point in time where, you don't pass a lot. You don't really give your quarterback a lot of time to get in the rhythm. So he might look a little shaky, and you have to make a decision to either stick with it and let him find his way, or do what they normally do, go the conservative route and stick to their strength. Now, unfortunately, because they have led themselves into this situation, because they did not capitalize on in those games in which they had the lead way, to have K, like you said, to let K make a couple mistakes, and now they're in a point in the season where they're playing opponents where they can't afford that. So they're kind of really, they put themselves in the corner with this playing style, and they're going to stick with it. And honestly, I don't think they can make a detour out of it at this point. They are who they are.
Hey, Des, if I can cut in for a second. Here is Michigan State's pass defense numbers against the last 4 quarterbacks against good teams. I threw out Western Kentucky. The last 4 games, and I know Northwestern in week 1 was not going to certainly add to any kind of argument here. So Derek King, Miami, a top 10 to 15 quarterback in the country. Yeah, he threw for 388 and he threw 2 touchdowns. But again, playing from behind most of the second half, the entire 4th quarter, he threw it 59 times. Jeez. 38 for 59 to get his 388, 2 TDs, 2 picks. The one thing that Michigan State did in that game, and they obviously knew what they were doing because they eventually wore them down 38-17, was they basically let Charleston Rambo, in particular from Miami, I remember watching this, just basically run to the sticks and turn around and catch like a 6-8 yard pass at will. They were just playing pitch and catch forever, and it seemed like, what are they doing? He's catching like 5-6 passes on one drive, and they're giving it up for 8 yards. But that was part of the deal, and they made it stand up. Adrian Martinez, 24 of 34, 244. Noah Vedral, Rutgers, 16 of 31, 208. And then most recently, Indiana, Jack Tuttle, 28 for 52. 52 pass attempts to get 188 yards. Wow. So that's nothing. That's horrible. And if you add all these quarterbacks up, they threw 2 touchdowns and 5 picks against Michigan State. So throughout the total yardage stat, I'm not buying that Michigan State's secondary is weak.